Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now.
There's so many things about his photography that is unique and that I really like, but more than anything, I think it's his portraits of people. And I love that he can catch the essence of people. And he does this in such a quick flash of a moment that you don't realize that he's doing it until later and you're on Flickr and you're like, I'm going to do an ego search. Oh, I really like this picture of myself. And it's always Kris's picture. And Miriam Scoble and I were talking about this the other night. We're like conspiring. We have to make sure that Kris takes pictures of us together because we know they'll be good. And we'll look skinny and thin. So without further ado, here's Kris Krug.
Oh, wow. Good morning. I'm Kris. Thanks for having me at Gnomedex. I've been here 3 or 4 times, and I've never spoke before, so I'm kind of excited. I guess the premise is there's a lot of cameras out here and a lot of internet connections, and more photos get generated like in the next few hours than most events see over the whole course of the event. So we thought we'd spend a few minutes at the front end figuring out how we can all take better pictures. How many people already have taken pictures and have them on Flickr from this morning? Is there anyone yet? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's fucking impressive. Good job, guys. Yeah, I'm Kris Krug. I run a company called Rain City Studios up in Vancouver, British Columbia with Robert Scales. We're a 30-person web development shop. We opened an office in China. I just got back from the Beijing Olympics in Shanghai. And I also run a photography studio called Static Photography. I shoot bands and fashion and portraits of people and stuff. And I teach at Vancouver Film School. So that's a little about me and where I come from. I'm going to dive right into this because I just got a few minutes. And my goal is to just whip through a whole bunch of tips. And then maybe we can have some question and answer time. And I'd encourage you to pull out your camera if you got it, because maybe we'll flip around some settings and different things. So if it's in your bag, which I doubt it is, pull it out. So one of my first tips is about light and seeing light. In this case, I just wanted to pull up a photo of the light in Melissa's eyes, because this is really what sets a lot of photos apart from other ones. It's just the little catch light here in the eyes. But you can get a lot of different ways. You can get it from the sun. You can get it from lights like this. You can get it from a reflector bouncing it back, or light coming from a different source. But take a look at their eyes. That's really kind of what brings a certain photo to life. When you walk into a room, any room, one of the first things you're going to do if you want to take good photos is just to take a quick inventory of the light. Like, the stage is well lit, the back is not that well lit. There's some interesting spotlights along the wall over there. Those would be fun to take pictures of people underneath. It'd look like a halo down on their head. Yesterday, the room that we were in for a while outside, it had the incandescent bulbs on the one half of the room, but the other half of the room was sunlight. And if you just take a quick inventory of what the lighting situation is when you come in, you can make some better decisions about where to put people or where to shoot or what settings to have your camera on. If you're doing an interview for your podcast, or you have a minute where you're actually saying to someone, hey, do you mind if I take your picture? Go through the trouble of grabbing them and pulling them into good light. Make them face the sunshine, or have them stand under one of these halo lights back here or something. It makes all the difference. Look for that reflection or catch light in your eyes. Don't be afraid. Whenever I'm doing photo shoots, I always use super low-end accessible lighting, like a Home Depot space light, or IKEA lamps that you pull down over. So, be a lighting designer with just the basic things that you have. Pull in, a couple lamps from your bedroom, construction light, flashlight with LEDs. I'm always picking up lights at the, little LED lights at the flea market and stuff for $5, and you're in a dark place, you stick one of the things on there, you pop it on, and you can take pretty cool photos. Working with what you got. One of the differences between my photos and a lot of other people's photos is that I can shoot in super, super low light conditions. So I wanted to give you guys, this is Flaming Lips on stage at South by Southwest, and I mean, it was no light, and yet they're super sharp, and you get all the cool light reflecting off the stuff up here. If I would have used a flash, I would have completely lost any of the ambiance in this photo. So the things that we can do to quickly shoot in low light conditions are turn your ISO up as high as it goes. The higher you get, the more pixel and grain you get, but sometimes it doesn't matter. There's pixel and grain in this photo if you looked close, but it doesn't really matter because I caught a moment that it was a great moment. It has a lot of energy and emotion in it, and so turn your ISO up high enough that you can keep shooting. Some of the more technical things you guys can ask me about afterwards. I'm going to try to make this kind of intro general for everyone, but increase your aperture. This means making the number lower. F1.2 is about low as it goes on super nice lenses. A lot of mine are f1.4, f2.8. That means it's a big hole, the big f-stop. Make the hole as big as possible, which is the lowest number. Decrease your shutter speed. This keeps the shutter open for longer. But there's a corollary effect. The longer you keep your shutter speed open, the more the chances there's going to be a blur. So you want to keep your shutter open as long as you can without getting blur. And so that just depends on your subject, what you're shooting. With some of our SLRs, especially the Canon ones, the auto-focusing system in low light kind of sucks. You'll notice that it kind of like grinds in and grinds out and grinds in. And it's trying to find the subject, but it doesn't attach itself to anything. Just flip on manual focus at that point. You'll be able to shoot in much lower light conditions. You don't need to rely on the autofocus. A lot of times, your camera can shoot in better or lower light than your autofocus system can work in. Low light, so if you're shooting in low light and you've done all these things, you've turned up your ISO, you've messed with your aperture, you messed with your shutter speed, and you're still not really getting the results you want, this is a great time to learn those scary manual settings on your computer. Swap it into M, and then and it's still blurry, so you swap it into M and start tinkering with the aperture and the shutter speed. And what you'll find is that maybe you'll only get the one piece of light falling across a guy's face, and the rest will be black, but it'll be amazing. And what your camera's trying to do is it's like in an auto metering mode. And so it's trying to take an evaluative metering of the whole light that's available in the situation. So what we're doing by putting it on manual is turning that off. We're saying, camera, disengage your brain. I don't want you to think for me right now. I'm going to just go into experimentation mode. So low light, when you're stuck, is a great time to start to experiment with those settings you've never used before. Oh yeah, and brace on things. Like some buddies brought some little things like these clamps are awesome. They'll hold pretty much every camera up to, it won't hold mine because of the heavy lens, but it'll hold lots of Canon Rebels and things like that. And this is another one, just a little C-clamp tripod. You can stick it on anything. So these are great for low light, motion blurs, all sorts of stuff. Reflections are yummy. I love reflections. This one over here is like in London. It's the London Eye in a puddle. You can kind of see the puddle texture here. This is me driving my Subaru down the highway from Nomdex a couple years ago, literally like hanging my camera out the window and just shooting on the highway as we went down. So. Puddles are my favorite. Look for glass, metal, reflections, anything that puts off more light. It's going to add more light to your frame, which is going to make it sharper, and it's also just going to give it something of visual interest. Pick a theme. This is my Nomdex wall of love. A couple of years ago, I came here. Low-end digital cameras had just, or low-price digital SLRs had just hit the market, and every single one of you guys had one. And I was feeling a little cramped. Like I was like, how am I going to make my shots different than everybody else's? So I went down and bought 20 packs of Polaroid film and just took a bunch of portraits and made this wall. So. Focus on a theme in your photography, black and white, geeks, laptop stickers, pretty smiles and big eyes, or pick something interesting that kind of unifies your photos throughout. And it'll give you a real personality or story to the photos. In Beijing last week, there's 20,000 accredited journalists, photographers from around the world, and I was like, how are my photos going to be different? I don't have access to the venues. These guys have better gear than me. So I picked a Faces of Beijing theme. And I wandered around taking pictures of all the fans that have been there from different places, women from the Cook Islands and teams from Spain and all sorts of different stuff. And ended up running a couple photo essays in the LA Times just around the theme of Faces of Beijing and Streets of Beijing. So pick something that's different that kind of provides a unique perspective and run with that. Learn your camera. This is an important thing. Here, let me start with a real basic tip, which is, let me start with a real basic tip. Shoot every day. If you really want to be a photographer, here's like it's not like magical stuff, but it's like shoot every day, post your photos every day, get feedback on them, and then incorporate what you heard the next day. Like it's a kind of a simple thing, just practice. Get out there, learn your camera. The first tip in learning your camera is to isolate the variables. So most of us with these DSLRs or with cameras that we can control, we have the AV setting and the TV setting and then the manual setting. What these things allow us to do is isolate the variables. So the AV is like aperture. It's the thing I'd learn first, because it allows you to control the light. It also allows you to control the depth of field. And depth of field is like when I'm sharp in focus and everything behind me is blurry or blurred out. When you shoot with a big hole, you have a shallow depth of field. My nose might be in focus and my ears might be out of focus at f1.4. At f22 or f36, more like landscape f-stops, like Ansel Adams would use. He used f64, started a club of people who did. Huge focal plane. So everything from my nose to the back of the stage is going to be in focus. So isolate the variables. That's aperture. Shutter speed would be the next one once you feel like you have control of aperture. So you can start to go fast shutter speeds will always catch a person in motion. If I jump and it's fast shutter speed, you're going to catch my legs up and my hair up, and it's all going to be sharp, right? And if you do slow shutter speed, you might see me blurred up and blurred down. And maybe you choose to flash it in the middle, so you get me blurred up, flash, sharp crisp, and fall and blur back down. So you can play with shutter speed that way. ISO is a good one to play with just to learn what it does. A rule of thumb is you always want it to be on as low as ISO as possible, and that will give you the best colors, the richest colors, and the least amount of pixelation. However, that's kind of like the ideal scenario, and here you could never shoot at 100 ISO or 50 ISO. So you have to start dialing it up, dialing it up. But what you want to do if you're outside, you're in a new situation, take a look at your settings, bring your ISO kind of in line with the amount of light that you have available. A good shutter speed is like between f125 and or 1/25th of a second and 1/500th of a second. It's kind of like a good range. So tweak your ISO to get it in there. Share your gear. This is something that like people think it's like funny feedback or whatever, but people always ask me like what kind of camera to buy, and I'm so not evangelical about this stuff. I think they're all great. My advice to people is ask your 3 photographer buddies what kind of gear they have, and if they're all Nikon people, buy a Nikon. And if they're all Canon people, buy a Canon. And that way you can swap gear back and forth, test out new lenses, try new things out. I really think it's more important to kind of like learn from your peers and through experimentation than to buy like the best system. And I think you could spend a lot of time and energy going down the hole of what's the best and not really get anywhere. So, and set the fucking white balance. So guys, everyone has a thing on their camera. It's called like WB or AWB. It's usually broken. And there's a bunch of other settings. One that looks like a light bulb. That's the one you would use in here. It's like incandescent, I think, or halogen or something. And the sunshine one and the shade one. Take some time. You'll get rid of those yellow photos, orange photos. It's a basic little thing, but it helps you start to see what you're taking pictures of. And then you can break the rules, right? So this is the wrong white balance. I used film white balance for tungsten. I shot it under sunlight, and it came out crazy, but I love it. You know, it's like a neat palette and stuff. You got the catch light in the kid's eyes right here. So learn the white balance as a beginner, and then as you get more advanced, learn when to screw with it and change it around. Take a look at the background. Just glance at what's behind them. You know, like a lot of family photos are ruined because there's like a tree sprouting out of mom's head, or like a flagpole running up your back or something. So just take a look at what's going on back there. Move your subject to somewhere that's interesting. Like I keep referencing that wall because the light falls so neat on it right there, but that would be a great background. Geometry is good. Brick patterns, chain link patterns. When you have someone stand on a wall, don't have them leaning on the wall. Have them take like a step or two off it. You'll give that little bit of a breaking the subject away from the background a little bit and kind of maybe blur it out and give you a nice little focus on the subject. Yeah, less busy puts more focus on the subject. Fill the frame. This is a basic mistake that a lot of people make. Someone told me the other day, like, take a look at your subject and put your hand up, and if the subject's not bigger than your hand, you're not close enough. But my rule in general is you'll often see that there's heads cut off in my photos or body parts cut off, but get close. Fill up the whole frame. Use as much of the real estate as you can. Here's the most basic photography rule of all time. You'd learn it in photography school if you went. It's the rule of thirds. You take your frame, you divide it into grids, and these are the like interesting points. Right there, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I was shooting a portrait, the eyes almost always end up on this line. And if I'm shooting landscapes, the horizon never ends up in the middle. It either ends up here or here. So if I'm shooting like a landscape, I'll frame it up so the landscape for the first time is like the bottom third, and then I'll reframe the shot again so it's 2/3 with the sky being big, and just put the interesting things of the subject either along those lines or specifically in those 4 points, and that's what kind of creates tension and movement and stuff within a composition of a photo. Get high, swing low. People look better when shot from above. They look skinnier, they look younger. You see everyone with their MySpace pictures holding their camera up and doing this. It's because we look better from that angle. But beyond just people and making them look good, like, a photo that is interesting or intriguing or that stands out is one that looks different than what you saw or what somebody else saw. It's like, hey, I was there, but I didn't exactly see that. So climb on things, lay on the floor, try to get access to catwalks at places. Like, just change your perspective. Almost never stand straight up and take a photo. Even I do this all the time when I'm on fashion shoots. Yeah, just move around, get a different perspective. I saw Derek here holding this camera way up behind him and shooting back behind him, hoping for happy accidents. Like, just change your perspective. Tips for being a pretty subject. So if you want to have your photo taken of you, here's some quick tips. Have fun, smile. Tell yourself a joke in your head when the guy points the camera at you so you look fun. Make eye contact with the camera. If you have a small point-and-shoot camera and you're having trouble getting people to make eye contact, maybe hold your camera right here at the chin and make real eye contact with them. Like look at your subject in the eyes and take the picture from here. Take off, well, this year it's not bad, but you know, sometimes you're at conferences and they have like the ads all over them. Take off your lanyard for a sec. You're more likely to use it for a shot for your MySpace profile or Facebook, something like that. Stand in the light. You know, be well lit. Avoid douchebag hand gestures like this or this, unless you're a Japanese girl or me. Get close. If there's two subjects standing together, you know, don't be afraid. Grab the person next to you, pull them close, smile, interact. Don't squirm, stand still. If you want good photos of yourself, just stand there and take it. Quick camera buying advice. People are always asking me about buying cameras. What camera should I buy? I don't give advice about that, but what I do say is take your budget, divide it into thirds, and spend 1/3 on your body and 2/3 on a lens. Not multiple lenses, but a lens at first. So if you look at photography gear over a lifespan, you're going to change your body multiple times. I've had a few in 5 years or 6 years. I bought film bodies at pawn shops because I have nice lenses to stick them on. And really, it all comes down to the glass. Every photographer will tell you it all comes down to the lenses. So take whatever your budget is, divide it into thirds, spend 1/3 on your body, and spend the rest on one nice lens. And then add one more nice lens, you know, when you have time or budget or whatever. But don't buy a bunch at first, because you can learn that one you have. I'm going through an interesting conversion right now. I'm converting all my lenses from like the high-end Canon Zoom L series glass to the primes. I want to get a bunch of prime lenses. So I have a 24-70 right now, which I'm going to replace with a 24, a 50, and an 85, just because the sharpness is so much sharper and so much more light is let in. If you want help with camera buying strategies, hit me up, but spend more money on your lens than your body. Look for manual controls, even on the point and shoots. Like there's a really cool Canon G9 that's out right now. It's like this big, but it has all the same controls as like their, you know, Mark 1 DS and stuff. So that's awesome. That's the type of stuff that gives you longevity in your camera purchase. So once you learn the settings and play with it a bit, you might get bored and think you want a different camera. So find one with manual settings that you can grow into a bit. You can turn them off, obviously, until you need them. Don't fall for the megapixel thing. I don't completely understand it. Someone can tell you better than me, but the premise is something like megapixels like space to live in. So like when you cram millions and millions of megapixels on a smaller and smaller sensor, they're not as happy, and it's not the same. You can't do the math, you know. It's not as easy as apples and apples when you're looking at megapixels. So don't fall for that. Look for optical zoom, look for the quality of the glass, manufacturer, stuff like that. All right, the paradox. Now forget everything that I said and just like take your camera out there, have fun, throw yourself into interesting places, take a lot of photos, share them with people, get feedback. Yeah, feel it, have fun. Thanks to Chris and Ponzi. My presentation's under Creative Commons license. Share it around, pass around your tips. Twitter me your other tips. I'll put your tips into this. Anyone who links to me on all those fun keywords up there, photographer, Vancouver fashion photographer, any of that kind of stuff, I'll do a portrait session for you here at GnomeDex if you want. So if you guys are blogging this or taking notes, those are the words I'd like you to link to. Yeah, if you want to get in touch, there's my info. That's it. Any questions? Yeah. Go for it, real quick.
Oh, hey, so for the mic, what balance?
Yeah.
Last night you set my weight.
Yeah.
And, you know, because this upsets you. Lightroom fixes most.
Sure, you're shooting in RAW, which a lot of people can't afford to do because it adds not inefficiency, but it adds overhead. It adds time to download your pictures, time to upload them, and hard drive space and all the rest. So shoot RAW if you can afford it with the time and money. Otherwise, your white balance is locked in a JPEG.
Clearly my white balance is fucked. But, I mean, you know, Lightroom is a beautiful tool.
Sure, but you can also do things on camera that save you time later. So even on fashion shoots, right, it's like, girl's got hair in her face. Yeah, I can take it out in Photoshop, but I still call the stylist in to pull it out of her hair because I'd rather have her do it now than spend an hour doing it in Photoshop later. So, Beijing question?
Do you have any of your Beijing photos?
I do, but we probably don't have time to look at them right now, so hit me up on the break. And I'd love, one thing that I don't like about my photography is because I'm so webby and always publishing them online and stuff, I never really have the chance to sit down with people and flip them through, and I never ever print them out. And so I actually like the chance to sit down and tell the stories that are trapped in the photos and stuff, so that'd be great if you catch me later and we can talk about China. Questions? Yeah? I use them. I have the Canon 70-200 f2.8L with IS. If you can afford it, go for it. I think they're awesome. So they save you a stop or two. The 70-200 has that cool image stabilizer where mode 1 stops it from jittering, but mode 2 lets you shoot motion, so you can shoot like bicyclists, cars, people walking. Yeah. Yeah.
I noticed you were talking about switching to prime lenses, and I've kind of done that. How am I running to is I only have one body. So,
Yeah.
so you mentioned switching to prime lenses and limited to one body. How do you handle like transitioning between your 24 to 85?
Yeah, it's a problem. It's not a problem, but I hear the issue you're bringing up. I have two bodies. I have a film body and a digital body. I'm going to keep my digital body when the mythical Canon 5D Mark II comes out. That's been talked about for a year. Like, I'm so annoyed with that camera, but I'm going to keep that one. But really, like, if I'm shooting a concert, I know that I want one wide and one tight. So I'm going to put like a 24 on one thing, and maybe even just keep a 150 in my pocket or something like that, and just switch back and forth. Usually get 3 songs at the front of a show. So I'll shoot 2 tight, get facial expressions, hands on instruments, and then I'll pull back for the wide and get the ones where they want to see everybody in the band, not just the lead singer or whatever. Yeah?
Same rules apply for video?
I don't know. Probably a lot of them. Change your perspective, set the white balance, check out backgrounds. Like, I'm not that familiar with video, honestly, but a lot of this stuff's super general. It's like how to compose a good image. So yeah, I'd say probably lots of it applies to video. Yeah?
If you're shooting digital, do you have any tips for you finalize picture and you actually want to print it out and hang it on your wall? Do you have any tips for that kind of conversion process?
No, I mean, I haven't done a lot of that. And when I print things for like art shows and stuff, I get them printed at a local lab because the guys help me out a lot. One thing that a buddy's recently been doing is he's been sending one print that he likes off to like the 5 online print vendors and just spending like 30 cents with each of them, but getting a sample print from 5 different vendors and then just seeing what he likes best. So yeah, the O photos of the world and the Shutter Snap Fishes or whatever, like, you know, send them each one photo and get them back and compare and see what you like. Or buy a fancy printer. Yeah?
Can you talk a little bit about how you break the ice when you're shooting photos of people you don't know?
Man, that's like where the black magic voodoo is, isn't it? It's really hard. You know, Ponzi asked me to talk a little bit about that, and I don't really know exactly. I mean, in China, I learned how to say "wo kai pai jiao ma," which is, you know, can I take your picture, please? And that was like so disarming to have a white guy come up and speak decent Chinese to them that they smiled and laughed for a second and held up their cute baby and were like, "Take a picture of my baby." So, I don't know. Just like. Summon up your charisma and charm, whatever it might be, you know, whether it's a smile or a compliment or a funny story or a joke, or find something to just kind of break the ice. You only need a few seconds. And then one thing is, like, once you take a good picture of someone, show them. You build rapport that quick, and they're like, oh, wow. Because people don't like not like having their picture taken. They don't like having bad pictures taken. They love great pictures. Like, so yeah, if you take a good picture, just spin your camera around, show them, and then keep going. Shoot some more, and you build that rapport real quick. Yeah?
This is also sort of about printing photos, but earlier you said megapixels are sort of junk, like don't pay attention to it. But it does have an effect on how big you can get a print, isn't that right? Do you know how
There definitely is some things to pay attention to, but the point is megapixels confuse me in general. So when you're shopping for a camera, don't let the guy at Best Buy who doesn't know a damn thing say like, this one's 20 megapixels and this one's 15, so buy the 20, because there's a lot more to it than that was my whole point. All right, perfect. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.